Stop everything, because what you are about to hear will completely change how you see this entire situation. One moment, she calls him a good man. The next, everything starts falling apart, and the truth behind it is something no one expected. If you want real stories with zero filters and twists you will not see coming, hit subscribe right now because you do not want to miss what happens next. It begins with a moment that feels quiet, almost too quiet, like the calm before something bigger unfolds. Because when someone looks directly into the camera and says, "He is a good person," it does not land as simple or straightforward. Instead, it lands heavy, layered, almost rehearsed, like a sentence that has been thought about many times before being spoken out loud. And that is where the tension starts to build. Because for anyone who has followed this story for years, those words do not come without history. They do not come without contradiction, and they definitely do not come without questions. Because how does someone go from angle, distance, and emotional separation to suddenly being described as good without something shifting behind the scenes? And that is exactly where viewers begin to lean in a little closer. Because this is not just about a compliment. This is about a narrative change. And when narratives change, there is always a reason. Whether it's emotional, personal, or something far more strategic. And as the words continue, something far more compelling, because it invites viewers to read between the lines, to analyze the subtext, and to consider the possibility that what is being shown is only one piece of a much larger puzzle. And just when it seems like the moment might settle into something familiar, it shifts again, introducing a layer of reality that changes how everything is perceived. Because outside of the cameras, outside of the edited scenes, there are factors at play that influence how people speak, how they behave, and how they present themselves. And one of those factors is the presence of legal boundaries, the kind that do not just exist in the background, but actively shape the narrative. Because when someone is required to avoid speaking negatively about another person, it naturally affects how they communicate. It creates a filter, it introduces caution, and it often leads to statements that are technically true, but emotionally complex. And that is exactly what makes this situation so intriguing. Because now, the audience is not just watching a relationship dynamic, they are watching a carefully navigated space where words must be chosen with precision, and where meaning can exist in what is not said just as much as in what is said. And that realization adds a new level of depth to the story, because it suggests that the shift in tone may not be entirely voluntary. It may be influenced by circumstances that extend beyond personal feelings and into the realm of obligation and responsibility. And when that possibility is introduced, it changes everything, because it forces viewers to reconsider the authenticity of the moment. Not in a dismissive way, but in a curious, analytical way. Because now every statement becomes a clue, every interaction becomes a piece of evidence, and every scene becomes an opportunity to uncover something deeper. And as this awareness grows, the suspense intensifies. Because the audience is no longer passively watching, they are actively interpreting, trying to connect the dots between what is shown and what is implied. And that engagement is what keeps them from looking away. Because the story has become more than just entertainment. It has become a mystery, one that unfolds gradually, revealing just enough to keep people invested, while holding back enough to keep them guessing. And as the focus shifts to other perspectives, the contrast becomes even more apparent. Because while one side is presenting a composed, almost diplomatic version of events, the other side is expressing frustration, anger, and a desire to disconnect completely. And that difference in tone creates friction. Not loud, explosive friction, but a quieter, more subtle kind that lingers beneath the surface and influences how every interaction is perceived. And that is where the emotional complexity reaches another level. Because now the audience is not just comparing actions, they are comparing mindsets, trying to understand how two people who shared so much can now see the same situation in such different ways. And that contrast is both fascinating and unsettling, because it reflects a reality that many people recognize even if they have not experienced it directly. The idea that truth is not always singular, that perspective shapes reality, and that understanding someone else does not always mean agreeing with them. And as these themes continue to unfold, the story becomes richer, more layered, more difficult to simplify. And that complexity is what keeps viewers engaged, because it mirrors real life in a way that feels authentic, even when the circumstances are unique. And just when it seems like the narrative might begin to resolve into something clearer, another element is introduced, one that shifts the focus from the past and present into the future. Because at the center of all of this is a child, someone who is still navigating their own understanding of relationships, family, and identity. And that presence changes the stakes completely. Because now the story is not just about adults managing their emotions, it is about the impact of those emotions on someone who is still growing, still learning, and still forming their own perspective on the world. And that realization adds weight to every moment, because it reminds the audience that behind the conversations, behind the drama, behind the speculation, there are real lives being affected in real time. And that awareness creates a deeper connection to the story, one that goes beyond curiosity and into empathy. Because viewers are no longer just asking what will happen next, they are also considering how those outcomes will shape the people involved. And as that connection strengthens, the desire to see the story through to its conclusion becomes even stronger. Because it is no longer just about finding answers, it is about understanding the journey and the choices that define it. And that is what makes this opening so powerful. Because it does not just introduce a situation, it's highlight their differences, it amplifies them, making it impossible to ignore the gap between how each person is choosing to navigate the situation. And as viewers watch this unfold, they are naturally drawn into the complexity of it, because it challenges them to consider multiple viewpoints at once, to hold conflicting ideas in their minds, and to accept that the truth may not exist in a single version of events, but rather in the space between them. And just when it seems like emotions might take over completely, there is another shift, this time into something even more revealing, because the timing of these conversations begins to align with real-world events that add an entirely new layer of context. And suddenly, the emotional reactions that once seemed spontaneous start to feel connected to something larger, something that extends beyond personal feelings and into the realm of responsibility, obligation, and consequence. And that realization changes how everything is perceived, because it suggests that what is being shown is not isolated. It is part of an ongoing situation that continues to evolve, even when the cameras are not present. And that awareness creates a sense of urgency, because it means that every moment captured on screen is just a snapshot of a much bigger story, one that is still unfolding in real time. And as this understanding deepens, the audience becomes more invested, not just in what is happening, but in how it is being presented. Because now the focus is not only on the actions themselves, but on the narrative that is being constructed around them, and whether that narrative fully reflects reality or simply offers one interpretation of it. And that question becomes central to the viewing experience, because it encourages people to look beyond the obvious, to question assumptions, and to remain open to the possibility that there is more to discover. And as the story continues to unfold, another important element comes into focus: the idea of responsibility, not just in terms of actions, but in terms of words, and how those words can influence others, especially when they are shared publicly. And this is where the situation becomes even more delicate, because it involves balancing personal expression with the potential impact on those who are listening, particularly when those listeners include individuals who are directly connected to the situation. And that complexity adds weight to every statement, because it means that nothing exists in isolation. Everything is part of a larger web of relationships, emotions, and consequences. And as viewers become more aware of this interconnectedness, the stakes of the story continue to rise, because it is no longer just about resolving conflict. It is about navigating it in a way that considers balance in a situation that feels inherently unbalanced, and the effort to create stability in an environment that is constantly shifting. And as these themes continue to develop, the introduction of David adds yet another layer to the narrative, because his presence brings a new perspective, one that is grounded, direct, and not bound by the same constraints that seem to influence others. And that difference becomes immediately noticeable, because it introduces a sense of authenticity that contrasts with the more measured tone seen elsewhere. And when he expresses his views, it does not feel filtered or adjusted. It feels honest. And that honesty resonates with viewers because it provides a point of reference, something that feels stable in a story that is otherwise filled with uncertainty and shifting dynamics. And yet, even this new perspective does not simplify the situation. Instead, it adds to the complexity because it highlights the differences in how each person is approaching the same set of circumstances. And that diversity of thought reinforces the idea that there is no single way to navigate a situation like this. There are only choices, each with their own implications and outcomes. And as the interactions between these individuals continue to unfold, the audience is given glimpses into what those choices might look like in practice. Moments of agreement, moments of tension, moments where understanding seems possible, and moments where it feels just out of reach. And it is within these moments that the true emotional core of the story begins to emerge. Because beneath the surface level discussions, there is a deeper exploration of connection, communication, and the effort required to maintain both in the face of change. And as this exploration continues, the presence of humor, lightness, and even awkwardness adds a layer of realism that makes the story feel more relatable, because it reminds viewers that even in serious situations, there are moments of levity, moments where people try to ease the tension or find common ground in unexpected ways. And while these moments may seem small, they play an important role in balancing the narrative, providing brief pauses in the intensity and allowing the audience to catch their breath before the story moves forward again. And just when it feels like things might begin to stabilize, there is another subtle shift, one that brings the focus back to the broader implications of everything that has been discussed. Because beyond the individual relationships, beyond the personal experiences, there is a larger conversation taking place about how people navigate complex situations in a public space, how they manage perception, how they balance honesty with discretion, and how they continue